Hi, this is Dr. B in the studio with another exciting episode of Never Again Live with Meir HaLevi Weinstein. And tonight's episode is going to have a special guest we'll introduce a little bit later. But meanwhile, we'll start off with the Parsha, which is Parsha Pick a Day, which if we're going to pick a day, there's no day better than today. So we'll do that. Then we'll move on after that for a quick recap of last week's episode, particularly the Detroit-based Dula Mula, who we had a lot of fun with last week. Immediately following that, we'll move on to a little more Michigas from Michigan with Imam, talking a little about his feeling about Jews. From that, we'll go and introduce our special guest, Robert Spencer. So without any further ado, and that, by the way, is ado, A-D-O, not A-D-I-E-U, the French word. Everybody gets that mixed up. It's not a farewell. It's without further ado or hassle. And take it away, Meir.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone joining us. And let me just ask everyone who's joining us right now, if you could please share this with the various pages and groups that you're part of. We'll reach a lot more people. We'll have a stronger impact. It's going to be a very exciting show. We have Robert Spencer, who's an expert on radical Islam, that's going to be joining us and giving us very important information, overview of what's going on. There's so much going on. Obviously, we're not going to cover everything. He's written books, and we're not going to be able to read books to you tonight, anything like that. But it is a phone-in as well. People could call in, ask him questions, ask all of us questions as well. There's a lot to discuss. These are exciting times, historic times that we're in. But like every show, we begin with a recap of the Parsha that was said in our synagogues this past Shabbat. And the Parsha, it's really a double Parsha. Ve'hekel Pekudi. We read two Parshas. And it's very interesting that in this Parsha, we're talking about the building of the tabernacle in the wilderness as a prelude to entering Israel and building the temple in Israel. And in the Parsha, it goes on about the men and the women that they were, it wasn't that they were forced to give. There was a willingness to give. There was, people were like rushing to the finish line to give as much as they could give in the meticulous detail that is listed in the Torah of what should be given and how to build the tabernacle. But here's something that there's a couple things to bear in mind. One is that as that is happening, the construction of the tabernacle, and it's really unbelievable how it's designed and the colors and gold and unbelievable embroidery, incredible. But they also go on about, it says, Moses said to the children of Israel, "See, Hashem has proclaimed by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. He filled him with godly spirit, with wisdom, insight, and knowledge, and with every craft. The weaves, design, to work with gold, silver, and copper, stone cutting for setting, and wood carving, to perform every craft of design." Now, there's a question here. And what's the question? There's really should be an obvious question, because whenever anyone is called up to the Torah, and whenever a Jewish man is his name, what he's named after his father. Like myself, when I'm called up to the Torah, Meir ben Yeshua, Meir, the son of Yeshua, that was my father's name, of the tribe of Levi. Meir ben Yeshua HaLevi, the Levi. This is Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. Why does it go back not just to his father, but to his grandfather? Now remember, in this Parsha, they're talking about that people had this zeal to build the tabernacle. And this was after the golden calf, after the Egyptians, some Egyptians who followed the Jews out of Egypt, they were called the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude. They came out, and there were supposedly great people who came out, and Moses thought that when they come out and they see the revelation at Mount Sinai, when the Torah is given, that they will be inspired and they will definitely change their ways for the good. But when they calculated that Moses wasn't coming down when they thought he's going to come down from the mountain, that they rebelled and convinced some of the Jewish people to conspire and build a golden calf. In this parsha, they're forgotten. They don't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. And the Erev Rav was forgotten, and the mixed multitude, and the Jews who conspired with the Erev Rav to build the golden calf, they're completely forgotten. The ones who are mentioned, and the ones that are, and the only mention is of the rest of the Jewish people who were building the tabernacle. And then when it goes on about Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, why does it go back to his grandfather, Hur? Why does it go back? And the answer is because who was Hur? We read about him in two places in the Torah. We read about him when there was the battle, the Amalekites, the first group of Nazis that when they saw the Jews leaving Egypt, mounted an attack and looked for the weak ones amongst the Jewish people to hit them first or try to persuade them to go along and try and decimate the Jewish people. So when Moses was praying to God, Aaron was on one side and Hur was on the other side. And Aaron held up Moses' arm on one side towards heaven, and Hur held up the other arm towards heaven. That's where we hear about him in that situation. And when Moses was praying to God, obviously, it says in the Torah, the Jews were victorious. And when he'd relax and his arms would go down, they were getting hit. That's where we hear about him. We hear about him in another instance too. This is extremely important. We hear about him when the Jews were committing, when some of the Jews who followed the Erev Rav were building the golden calf, it was Hur. It was Hur who stood up and protested against this. He protested against this, and he got stoned to death. So he reached the zenith of faith. He wasn't afraid to speak the truth. And who better to be the architect of the tabernacle than the grandson of Hur, who is going to be uncompromising and will stand up for the truth. So it's one thing to have zeal. It's another to have that full commitment that you are not going to be shaken of your faith at all, and you know what the truth is, and you speak the truth, whatever the consequence. Today, we live in a time of so-called, well, the term is political correctness, but it's not correct. It's just ridiculous what's going on. And everything is upside down, topsy-turvy. And we're going to be talking about that a lot tonight. We're going to be talking about the so-called political correctness and what we have to do. Robert Spencer has dedicated his adult life to speaking the truth and to talking about who the enemies are of the West, and it's radical Islam and the Muslim Brotherhood. And when you start saying these things, you get accused of being a racist, Islamophobia. But we embrace the Abraham Accords. We like this warm peace. We like what's going on. We want more of it. So, if we could bring on Robert Spencer and we could be talking about that as we move forward. And again, remember, it's a phone-in. You will have your opportunity to ask questions. You could ask Robert anything that's on your mind on this topic. And we'd like to hear from you. The phone number to call is 647. There it is on the screen, 510-5535. Call, ask, listen to what Robert Spencer has to say. And I want to invite Robert Spencer on. It's a pleasure to have you. Robert, how are you?
Just great, Mayor. Good to see you.
It's a long time, Robert.
Been a long
Zazik,
time.
Great to see you.
So good to have you.
last I saw, you did not
We've
have
had you in Toronto before. You've spoken at when we've had counter protests, in fact, against all Quds Day. You're front and center, speaking the truth, and you get accused of the worst of the worst.
Oh my God.
But you're for speaking the truth and for peace and for calling the bad guys out and embracing the good people.
Yeah, that's all it is that this is about. The whole idea of the term Islamophobia is to stigmatize and demonize and ultimately to marginalize and silence any kind of opposition to jihad violence and to Sharia oppression. Now, people might think, wait a minute, no, it's there are plenty of people who are opposed to jihad violence who aren't called Islamophobes. Okay, name one. Everybody who speaks honestly about the motivating ideology behind jihad terrorism gets tarred with this label that's designed to silence them. And the whole point is so that the jihad can advance unopposed and unimpeded.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when you see that Donald Trump was able to get the Abraham Accords set, and you see that there's a movement of Israel and United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and peace, and they've even adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, and they've eliminated anti-Semitism from a lot of the textbooks,
Schools.
and what's going on, and they have spoken out against the Muslim Brotherhood and a variety of jihadi organizations. First off, what was going through what were your thoughts when it was just developing this Abraham Accord movement?
Really, it's one of the most brilliant foreign policy initiatives that we have seen in the history of the United States. It's absolutely astonishing. One of the clearest evidences of that is that the video was circulating a few months ago of John Kerry very confidently, very superior, very sure of himself, saying there is absolutely no way to make peace in the Middle East without going through the Palestinians and solving this problem. And Trump had the idea that nobody else ever had. All these learned experts who know how it's done never had the idea to bypass the Palestinians and their jihadi intransigence and to go to the other countries in the Middle East and appeal to them on the basis of their common self-interest, the fact that all of them are threatened by Iran and other factors, and to make peace on that basis. And it's astonishing, a bold move, a brilliant move, an absolutely breathtaking world historical breakthrough in the whole history of the Middle East conflict. And of course, in gratitude, people say Trump is anti-Semitic. It's absolutely astonishing.
It's terrible.
It's
Robert,
no kidding,
do you
no
see
kidding.
the new administration pushing any more Arab countries towards Israel for peace, or do you think it's kind of stopped with Trump?
Oh, there's no doubt it stopped. As a matter of, I mean, we're back now in Obama's third term, and the State Department spokesman Ned Price just recently, he warned Israel not to make any moves that would upset the apple cart. And it's ironic because Israel is not the one that makes the trouble. As it has so many times been said, and it's always true, if the Palestinians laid down their arms, there would be peace. If the Israelis laid down their arms, there would be genocide. Absolutely. And so the problem is not Israel. And so for the State Department spokesman to be warning Israel about not upsetting the fragile peace process just shows us that we're back to the old failed policies, failed approaches, the pressure on Israel that was always wrongly placed during the Obama administration did not result in any kind of peace accord. And the peace accords that the Trump administration sponsored are now threatened by this because these countries will want to stay in the good graces of the United States. The only hope that the Abraham Accords can survive is based on the idea that these countries, the UAE, Bahrain, and others, will see that they still have this enemy in Iran, and now it's even more important for them to ally with Israel against Iran, because the United States is going to be aiding Iran again, as it did during Obama's administration.
There are organizations like New Israel Fund, J Street, B'Tselem, to mention a few, that are overjoyed at some of the appointments that the Biden administration is making. Some of them are apologists for Iran. Some are BDS leaders. And you see that, there's like a zeal from New Israel Fund, B'Tselem, and J Street when these appointments are made, and these people have such records. And when I mentioned the BDS, in fact, when you have a BDS leader that's given a serious appointment in the intelligence field to oversee intelligence, national security, and presumably he would be the one that would meet with the Mossad. And all that. How outlandish is that? But when you have laws in the United States against aiding and abetting terrorism and support for Hamas, and the BDS, the composition of the BDS, that they have the BDS National Committee, and in the National Committee, one of the main organizations in that is an Islamic organization that composes Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and a few others that are on the terror list. And this is open, that's what the BDS is. They say it, that's the composition of the real BDS movement, which was founded in Ramallah. It's been a great 4 years under President Donald Trump. And, we felt amazing. We felt verified. But when we see this going on, our commitment to speaking the truth should be 100%. But what do you have to say about that?
Well, it's a shame. It's very dispiriting, because the BDS leader you're talking about in the intelligence field, maybe you have his name. I can't remember his name offhand, but the problem that you have pointed out is larger than even that. It's not just that he's going to be meeting with Mossad, and I trust Mossad is not going to tell him anything that could be dangerous, but that in itself is a problem. But even worse is that Obama, during his first 2 terms, he actually paid lip service to America's alliance with Israel. But now, when you're appointing these open haters of Israel, who are borderline anti-Semitic or openly anti-Semitic, to these sensitive positions, it's signaling to Israel and to the world, the alliance is on the ropes. You can't count on anything. And so this is the most anti-Israel administration. How long has it been? It's almost 2 months. And it's the most anti-Israel administration since the state of Israel was founded.
You're right. It's like 2 months already right now. 2 months.
And you know what? The list goes on, the names on the administration.
And I saw J Street today released, I read their Twitter account. They released a statement today condemning anyone who is looking into these appointments.
Of course. The Americans would be appalled if they knew. The problem is that we don't have a free media. We have this establishment media that's not a government media, although right now they coincide. But obviously it was a viciously, ferociously oppositional media for the last 4 years. And now it's a sycophantic propaganda media for the administration that's in power now. It's a leftist propaganda organ that doesn't tell the people the truth. I would imagine that if you went out into the street of any major city in the United States and asked 10 people what they thought of Biden's appointments regarding Israel, they wouldn't have any idea who they were and what their positions were. And if you told them, well, he's appointed these anti-Semites. He's appointed BDS leaders. He's appointed people with very long, decades-long records like Robert Malley of opposition to Israel in all kinds of arenas. They would be shocked. And none of this has been broadcast on any of the major media outlets.
We have, you shared a video recently, and I shared it on our Facebook page. I want to show this video. It's really astounding, and we could talk about this. It's from memory. It's unbelievable. If our studio director could put on the video.
Right there. I'm going to give a little intro to the gentleman who's on the video, just so we know who we're talking about, because he's quite impressive. If we look at him, he's a member of the American Human Rights Council. He's a member of the Interfaith Center for Racial Justice, and he's a recipient of the Interfaith Leadership Council Award for his camaraderie with other groups. So without any further ado, once again, this portion I like to refer to as More Michigas from Michigan. So we're going to play a part of his video.
Oh, let's see which one this is.
And let's see it. Video clips.
And indeed, we had decreed to Bani Israel in the book that they will cause mischief and fasad on earth twice. And then they will go to the heights. وَلَتَعَلُنَّ عُلُوًّا كَبِيرًا. And I believe, in my humble opinion, this ulu is what we are experiencing today. The ulu that is oppressive, that is controlling and abusing human rights in Palestine, as we know right now. And Allah talks about the rise and the decline. And unfortunately and sadly, what was captured by Umar radiallahu anhu is now under the custody of the Jews, of the Zionists. But inshallah ta'ala, the Muslims will eventually take Jerusalem back. Don't be shy to join hands with like-minded people, be them, yes, Jews.
Well, let me go make a little comment there. Which Jews is he talking about? The like-minded Jews. Well, most of those like-minded Jews are the Jews who reject the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. So I put together a little list, a little group of these Jews, and I call them the Progressive Israel Group, which stands for the Progressive Israel Groups we call PIGs. And their goal is to go and tikkun olamas into extinction. And as we can see there, the non-kosher sign. Well, which groups are these? The Progressive Israel Groups, also from now on known as the PIG groups. Well, we have the New Israel Fund, we have J Street, Trua, Partners Reconstructing Judaism. But then what they all do is they point their fingers at the rabbis who support them. So which are these rabbis that are supporting them? Well, there they are. So what more can I say? They're right. There are Jews who are indeed siding with them. So let's go and look at the rest of this gentleman's video now.
Okay.
It's coming right up.
Yes, Jews. There are Jews who are with you on this cause. Yes, not all of them are bad. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, مِنْهُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَأَكْثَرُهُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Yes, there are believers among them, but most of them are fasiq, disobedient. They are fasiq. But there are those among the Christians and the Jews who are doing the work for us, as a matter of fact.
But we know that in Michigan, we don't have problems with anti-Semitism, because this is a perfect example of another young boy from Detroit.
Anti-Semitism. anti-Semitism, activism عند أمك.
I like the keeper.
Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, back to you in Toronto.
Well, if that doesn't say that, these left-wing Jews are being used as tools, I don't know. I hope they're listening to this.
We
right?
need to show that video often, almost every Wednesday night, until we have another video to top that one.
Jeez.
That says it.
Oh, jeez. He'll win the Nobel Peace Prize soon, I'm sure. That's next for this guy, too. Wow.
Unbelievable.
And in his spare time, when he's not harassing shoppers, he has another pastime he's now engaging in.
يا يهودي يا ابن اليهودي. السلام عليكم. How are you? Free Palestine. أيوة another يهودي ابن يهودي. يهودا وما اليهيدة. Yo. السلام عليكم. How are you brother? وش اسم أمك؟ يا يهودي.
Yeah, they only hate the Zionists. That's right. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Those few Zionists, right?
Like I said last week, man, he should meet the right type of Jew.
Yeah.
He really should.
Yeah.
He should meet the right type of Jew. One that drives the bus.
Yeah, and that's why there should be a JDL again in Detroit.
Absolutely. I agree. Hey, Robert, why don't you think that the Biden administration will push for peace with other Arab countries? What do you think that agenda is, or lack of?
Well, they can't do that. They won't do that because Trump did that. Mm-hmm. So if they do that, it validates Trump's policies. And you see, Obama's third term, the Biden administration, is the Empire Strikes Back. It is the failed foreign policy experts having been shown up by amateurs being back in charge again. And they have to prove that they know better. And so the last thing they're going to do, there's just the absolute last possible thing they would do would be to try to get other Arab states or other Muslim states to conclude peace with Israel, because that's what Trump did. They know better. They know that what you have to do is shower billions on the Palestinians and turn a blind eye to their jihad genocide, their genocidal rhetoric, that is, and their jihad violence against civilians and so on. And that's the way to peace. They are deeply dug in and committed to that as the prescription, because they have been pursuing that for decades. And if they abandon it now and do what Trump did, they would be admitting they were wrong and admitting he was right, and then their whole raison d'etre is gone.
So it's egos.
Oh, yeah.
It's egos.
Well, there's a lot of that, too. There's just a lot of wrong appointments, bad appointments, horrible appointments.
Horrible appointments.
Also, how does, Pamela Geller, she's in New York, and she's Jewish, and she's, she was like so happy, like we were all, when President Trump, for the past 4 years, and now she sees, the Biden administration, the embracing of J Street and the worst of the worst and BDS people. Israel is strong, and Israel is sovereign and knows what they have to do to survive anyways. And they've already survived 2 terms of a previous Obama administration or administrations. But what's her take on what's going on? You're in regular contact with Pamela. So
yeah, well, what she says is still very public. It's at her website. She's been very vocal about how the Biden administration is proceeding to dismantle all the good work that took place over the last 4 years, and a great deal of information, of course, about related issues in regard to the inundation of the illegal migrants, the destruction of the border. All these things are related. It seems as if Obama and now Biden, or Biden's handlers, are committed to weakening the United States militarily, politically, and economically. And everything that they've done, everything Obama did in 8 years, and everything Obama's third term is doing now, seems to be dedicated to that. I mean, you have to believe that either they're very stupid or they're very evil. But I don't see another option. Do you? They are, everything they do is hurtful to the interests of the country they're supposed to be serving.
Right.
So either they are absolutely incompetent and unable to accomplish anything that they want to accomplish, or they have an insidious agenda. And I think that that's much more likely that they're globalist socialist internationalists who don't believe in the nation state and think that it is the root of the evil in the world today. And so they are steadily dismantling the world's leading power. And then presumably I guess they think, well, since you mentioned Pamela, let me remind you, way back 10 years ago or so, she and I co-wrote a book, The Post-American Presidency, the Obama Administration's War on America. And the title of that book comes from Fareed Zakaria's book, The Post-American World, because Obama in the 2008 campaign, his first presidential campaign, was seen reading Fareed Zakaria's book avidly while on the campaign trail. And The Post-American World by Fareed Zakaria actually says that if America is weakened militarily, politically, and economically, then there will be peace in the world because there won't be any reason to fight. See, every place will be as poor and squalid and dirty and dangerous as every other place. And so with mass migration, the destruction of borders, the homogenization of the global population, it makes for a weird kind of basis for peace, because nobody has anything more than anybody else does. There's no reason to fight. So it seems to me and it seemed to us when we wrote the book, that was the key to the whole Obama administration and the key now to the Biden administration, that it actually actively wants to weaken America. And it's certainly going about doing it in every way it can.
Sure looks like it.
We just had the Grammy Awards this weekend, and the honored Tamika Malloy, who's she calls Louis Farrakhan the greatest of all time.
This is once again, just like with what we were discussing before, that's a symptom of a larger problem. Tamika Malloy is honored at was it the Grammys? You said? I don't pay any attention to these. But the Grammys would never dream, would absolutely would recoil in horror if somebody said, "Why don't you honor somebody who is pro-Israel and openly and proudly Zionist and stands up for the rights of the Jewish people?" They would say, "No, we can't do that. It's controversial." But as far as they're concerned, Tamika Malloy being anti-Semitic, that's not controversial. Nope. And it's the same thing as in the sense of the business you spoke about at the beginning, the Islamophobia. The Grammys would gladly feature somebody like Reza Aslan, who speaks about how terrible Islamophobia is and how we have to look out for the rights of Muslims. And of course, we do have to look out for the rights of Muslims insofar as we're talking about equally with everybody else. But if we're talking about special privileges and special accommodations and accommodations to Sharia in the West, that's another thing. And the Grammys would never dream of featuring someone who opposes jihad violence and doesn't make excuses and say that it's really all the West's fault and so on. The whole the values of the mainstream have become completely topsy-turvy.
Yeah, no question about that. That's
having her in the Grammys is like having, like, let's say David Duke or somebody at the Grammys. Yeah. They would never have anybody like that, but it's so popular these days to be anti-Semitic. You look at some basketball players, some baseball players, football players, actors, producers, saying what they want to say, but they would never, ever cross the line with any other ethnic group or religion or anybody else. It's amazing. And that goes the same with socialism, communism. It was a dirty word. Now it's so proudly announced with the Democrats, with anybody. It's so popular. It's like a hobby for everybody. It's gross. It's crazy.
And you would think that with the Abraham Accords, that should be front and center with the media. This is like a breakthrough for the world. And no, they want to embrace Iran with their let's stone a woman again today.
Right.
Let's hang a gay today. Let's talk how
killing minorities,
do that.
everybody over there.
And that's like and these are devout. They're devout. And they have to be it's unbelievable. It's upside down.
It really is.
There's no morality.
Really it's such a crazy world, you know. You don't know which way to turn. You know, it's hard to watch the news these days. Really, it is. It's so biased, and like you were saying, and like they softball Biden and Harris with all these questions. How's the weather? And oh, that's a nice new dress you have on. With Trump, just hammered them and hammered them and hammered them. It's really out of control. It's gross. It's so gross. I can't watch it. I want to throw up.
What's astonishing is that anybody takes it seriously still, and doesn't realize that these are propaganda organs designed to manipulate public opinion. How anybody could watch the news and think this is news, think this is the way it is, like Walter Cronkite used to say, and that's the way it is. How can anybody think that? And yet the problem is, of course, that all this is happening at a time of the decline of educational standards as well. And so you have Americans as well as Canadians and people in Europe who just can't think straight. Quite frankly, they don't know how to make basic distinctions. They don't know how to discern when they're being lied to and manipulated. And so it's all the easier for the liars and manipulators to gain traction. And so all this feeds upon itself. All these phenomena work together to get us into the fix we're in today.
You know, Robert said something just
Yes.
right there, that they can't think straight. You're right. You know what? Most people nowadays can't think straight. I think the world's become so lazy that they want someone to think for them. They won't do any homework. So if somebody on CNN or any other newscast that is questionable makes a comment, no one does a background check. No one looks into. No one does a homework or sees, is this true? You know, they just believe. They just believe because Obama was their favorite guy.
Yeah. Do you think some of the lack of response by people, the lack of maybe interest, if that's the word to use, that the reason that there's a lack or perceived lack of that is because we're also going through a pandemic, and people maybe that's just the focus of most people. So it's almost like when you raise issues, important issues, these issues, that it's almost in one ear, out for the other, more because the focus is on the pandemic.
Well, that's true to a great degree, yeah. But I don't think that if the pandemic ever goes away, and if the hysteria about it ever goes away, that the situation is going to improve. I'm sorry to say, because the lack of education, the lack of ability to just make basic distinctions, the lack of the ability to recognize logical fallacies, that's not going to go away. And so, yes, the public is distracted, not so interested in other issues right now, but once they are, I mean, there's a reason why the establishment media acts the way it does and uses these constant ridiculous charges. Everybody's a racist now, and everything's racist, because they know that people recoil. They don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be thought of as racist, and they don't want to be associated with racists. So they use this, and they know that for the most part, most Americans today and most Canadians today are not going to sit up and think, well, wait a minute, is that really racist? Is this a just charge? You know, the Southern Poverty Law Center says this guy is a hate group leader. Well, is that really true? Are they credible? They're just taken as infallible as far as the establishment media is concerned. And so that's all there is to it. And people don't stop and investigate for themselves or think for themselves. And so, this is why we're in the fix we're in.
And let me butt in a second. I'm getting some people who are texting in questions specifically regarding your books. So I'm going to put a couple of pictures of your books on the screen. And if you could just briefly mention them in passing. This isn't a intentional commercial. This is actually people have texted in and said, what are the one person asked, what is the name of your book? Not appreciating how voluminous you are in your output of literature. So these are some of your books, and you can talk right over this.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I have written 21 books, and those include some of those that are here on the screen. Also on the screen are a few shorter pamphlets that I have written. Those are the Muslim Brotherhood in America and the Obama and Islam. And the primary book there that was on the graphic, I believe, is The History of Jihad, which is the only history of jihad in the English language that I know of. There are histories of the jihad against Europe and jihad activity in other areas, but this is the only comprehensive narrative history of jihad from the beginning, from the time of Muhammad to today, and that is including jihad all around the world, the jihad against Israel, the jihad against India, all over the world, from the 7th century to now. And so I think that that's maybe my most important book, because people don't realize. They think, oh, terrorism is something new. We didn't hear about terrorism when I was a kid. And they don't realize this has been going on for 1,400 years. And they think, oh, there were times of tolerance and peace and brotherhood between Jews and Christians and Muslims in medieval Spain and places like that. And the history of jihad shows that that's a historical myth. Did you have The Truth About Muhammad up there? That is the biography of Muhammad based on the earliest Islamic sources. So in other words, it's an introduction to what an average Muslim might believe about Muhammad, which of course is very important to know nowadays, along with the Complete Infidel's Guide to the Quran, which is a guide to the Islamic holy book. These books illustrate the motivations and goals of the jihad terrorists. The Palestinian Delusion is one that I'm very proud of. It is subtitled The Catastrophic History of the Middle East Peace Process, and it is a history, exactly that, of how there have been efforts to make peace between Israel and the Arabs since Israel was founded and before that, why they have all failed, why they all failed, how they are always doomed to fail because of aspects of the problem that have never been addressed by Western authorities who've tried to make the peace, most notably the role of Islamic doctrine in these issues. Politically Incorrect Guide to Islam is just that. It's kind of a general overview, an introduction to the aspects of Islam that make it problematic for non-Muslims around the world. Mass Migration in Europe is a study of that migration, how it has led to a situation in Europe that is much more volatile, dangerous, unstable than it had been previous to the mass migration, and why that also comes, just like in the case of the Palestinians and Israelis, that comes from core Islamic principles that have been universally ignored by the people who've implemented these policies. So thank you. That's just a few of the books. There are 21 in all. Get the whole set, and you can find them at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and if there are any independent bookstores out there, ask them to order it.
I thought also I'd show a couple of quotations that you've written and spoken for those people who have a misconception that we're anti-Muslim or anti-Islam. So you could actually read these and expand upon them.
Yeah, well, you know, it's very important to emphasize this business about anti-Muslim, because that is a term that the establishment media always like to use for people who speak honestly about opposition to jihad violence. Also here again, this is a case where basic distinctions are elusive to people and they don't seem to be able to make them. If you say Islam has doctrines of violence, Islam teaches in its core text warfare against unbelievers. That is an absolutely true statement that is readily provable. We could go into it in specific, or you can look at the books or look at the Quran for yourself and you'll see it teaches warfare and violence against unbelievers in a way that other religions do not teach warfare and violence against unbelievers. Now, a lot of people, when they hear me say that, say, oh, that means you hate Muslims. No, it doesn't mean I hate anybody. It means that this doctrine has this content. But people can't make these basic distinctions. And so they think, oh, and of course, it's also because the media always tells them, oh, to say this is anti-Muslim. Actually, there's some Muslims who are wonderful people. But if you go back to the books, the Quran and the other books, the Hadith and so on, you're going to find teachings saying make war against unbelievers. That doesn't mean that every Muslim carries those teachings out any more than every Jew or every Christian or every Hindu or every Buddhist does everything that the religion teaches. So the quote you had up said there are moderate Muslims, but there is no moderate Islam. That's what that means. There are moderate Muslims, millions of Muslims who are never going to wage jihad against us, but they don't stand up against those who do because they can't. And that's because the teachings of warfare are in the book, and they know they're in the book. So if they stand up against them, they're going to get charged with being unbelievers and apostates and heretics. So they don't. We can't count on them coming to our aid if the conflict if a conflict began.
My last comment I want to make.
Let me cut in for a second. We have a call. We have a caller on the line. Let's hear what he has.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. You got a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening to all of you. This is becoming my new favorite Wednesday night activity.
Thank you.
Dr. Spencer, I'm going to ask you to speculate. We know that the Biden administration has warmed up to the Palestinian Authority, wants to renew relations. What happens if in the upcoming elections Hamas wins? What direction does the Biden administration then turn to?
I don't think that'll make any difference at all. I think they're dug in, they're deeply committed. The Obama administration gave a lot of money to Gaza, which means giving money to Hamas. They don't care. And it will be sold to the American people. We'll start hearing about how Hamas is moderate now, and everything will be okay.
Any other questions?
No, that was to me. It's speculation at this point. We don't know what's going to happen, but I just didn't know what you thought because Hamas does not have that same reputation that the PA has. Right or wrong,
very
the
important.
PA has been branded for many years as the more moderate wing of the Palestinian people. And I just didn't know what he thought as far as Hamas. How would they be perceived with this administration? But again, we will find out when the election takes place.
Right. Thank you for your call.
Is an example. That's why I said why I answered your question the way I did. This is very important to understand. I predicted that we'll start hearing that Hamas is moderate and it's okay to send them billions of taxpayer dollars because that's what happened with the PA. The Palestinian Liberation Organization charter still calls for the total destruction of Israel. That has never been removed. There was a bit of sleight of hand in the 90s at the time of the Oslo Accord with people saying that they recognized the state of Israel, see, everything's okay. But they never recognized Israel as a Jewish state. In other words, all they did was recognize that there's this political entity there that they hope to take over. They never stopped calling for the total destruction of Israel, and yet the American administration wanted to pretend that there was a moderate party they could deal with. They anointed them. They called them moderates. They never temporized their rhetoric. They never stopped applauding jihadis, paying jihadis. That's why we have the Taylor Force Act and so on to try to stop aid to those who are giving money to the terrorists. But they still do it. They're not moderate. They're just called moderate, and Hamas will be called moderate if need be. In the same way.
Yeah, you know what? The only time there would be maybe some kind of a warm peace with the Arabs from Gaza and in Judea and Samaria is if they would wave the white flag and say, you're right, we tried to annihilate you in 1948 and up until today, and we don't want to do that anymore. And we accept your existence as a Jewish state, and we were wrong, and show us whatever deal so we could move on.
And help us grow. Help us grow as a country and help us with
Just
medical, whatever.
like in Gaza, when Israel pulled out of Gaza and left them with the greenhouses and an economy and everything else, they had their opportunities so many times. There's a call coming in.
Another call, guys.
Let's see what it is.
You're on live with Never Again.
Hey, what's up? It's Jordan. I have a question. What can U.S. citizens do to help?
Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you for your question.
Do to help? Well, you know, the situation is pretty bad right now. I can't sugarcoat it. I can't deny that. What we need to do is get this administration out of office and get a pro-American, pro-Israeli administration back in office. There are a great many obstacles to that. Right now, the House of Representatives has just passed this Voting Rights Act, and you see the propaganda about it, that the establishment media tells you, oh, the Republicans are trying to prevent people from voting and suppress voters, and this is needed for that. But this act, it calls for mail-in voting on a permanent basis, all kinds of opportunities for mail fraud, for voter fraud, that is, and it would, in other words, solidify and canonize and make ordinary all the charges that people have had about how the 2020 election was not on the up and up. Every election will be like that after this. So that has to be stopped. And everything that we can do in terms of trying to bring pressure upon our own elected officials and trying to raise awareness about these issues is absolutely necessary now, because otherwise there aren't going to be other elections where we can turn this around. They're going to be about as free as elections in the Soviet Union. It's going to be a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, we were discussing that a while ago too.
Yeah.
You know, now they got their formula. You know, they have a formula now. I don't know if the Republicans will ever win again. Fair and square. Really, it's scary. It's scary.
You know, one of the times you were in Toronto, we had a large event where you spoke and Pamela spoke as well. It was at the Hilton Hotel in Markham. We had a fabulous turnout for that event. And there was a rabbi, prominent rabbi in Thornhill, who gave the introduction for the event. Now, bear in mind, at that time, the Prime Minister of Canada was Stephen Harper. And it seemed like there was a different feeling in the Jewish community because he was a very strong leader and very certainly pro-Israel and certainly pro everything that we're talking about on our side. So this rabbi made the introduction, Rabbi Karupkin from the Bayit Synagogue in Thornhill. And then since we've had a liberal government, the feeling has changed in certain segments in the Jewish community. And then this particular rabbi who made the introduction, all of a sudden he appears at a dinner for the Muslim Vote Aid dinner. Now, the Muslim Vote organization, and I'm not saying this rabbi embraces the thoughts of that organization, but he goes to the dinner. It seems like legitimized that dinner. And that dinner, the Muslim Vote dinner, legitimizes their position. And what the position is of the Muslim Vote organization is to present the BDS to members of parliament as a good thing, like an anti-Israel policy to be a good thing. So to see this rabbi who, on the one hand, comes to our event, introducing you and Pamela, and then all of a sudden there's a different government, and it seems like a complete reversal. And on the one hand, before he used to be outspoken, very strong, coming to rallies for Israel, and then all of a sudden, like, you're silent and you're appearing at these kinds of the Muslim Vote dinner, when the Muslim Vote organization makes it clear that they want the government to adopt the BDS policy. What do you have to say about that?
I got to tell you, I'm not really all that surprised.
Right.
It was a long time ago, and I'm not sure I'm remembering the right occasion, but I think I am, because Pamela and I spoke about it afterward that evening, that his introduction
was interesting.
very, very 10-foot Polish. He was not totally embracing our position or the work that we were doing. He was very, very gingerly, with all kinds of reservations, saying this. And I think that that's kind of typical of people. Unfortunately, cowardice is pandemic in the world today, maybe more than the coronavirus. It's very, very common to have people who they just blow with the wind. And so the Harper government was in, and he thought he could speak out about these things, and probably he hasn't changed his mind at all about what he was doing that was good, but he doesn't think that it's possible now, and so he's trying to accommodate and go along. And this is going to be the death of us, really. This is what happened in Germany in 1933. Most people didn't vote for Hitler in 1933, but he was able to amass a coalition and gain power, and then gain dictatorial power. And most Germans said, well, we just have to go along with this. Now, I'm not saying that Biden is Hitler, or that Trudeau is Hitler, or that this fellow is like a good German, this rabbi, but it's the same kind of thing that really, we have a very comfortable life in the West, and we can be grateful for that, but it makes people not want to take any risks. And, the people who don't want to take any risks to protect their freedom are not going to remain free.
I get calls on the JDL number during the week. And I got thick skin. I could put up, I'm a big boy. I'm not afraid of really anything. But I got these calls from, sounds like Arabic people. Not all, in fact, that are calling, saying, you effing Jew, you effing Zionist, Hitler didn't finish the job, so on and so forth. That's the BDS. Yeah. That's the whole movement, that we take a stand. They don't like us taking a stand, speaking the truth, being out in the streets, opposing what they're trying to do. And they are the Nazis of today. Oh, yeah. Their goal, and maybe even worse, what their goal is.
Right?
Yes.
That was the first thing the Nazis did when they took power, was call for boycotts of Jewish businesses. And they stationed stormtroopers out in front of the department stores and other things that were owned by various Jewish organizations or individuals, and they would intimidate people into not going in. And, most people, here it is, they didn't go in. They figured, okay, well, we don't want to have trouble. I don't want to end up going to jail or something. What would have happened if 100 people or 1,000 people or 5,000 people had stood at the doorway of these places and said, we're going in, and swept the stormtroopers aside? Maybe the whole history of the world would be different.
Or if there were more Emil Greenspans in France, that they said they blame Kristallnacht on him. If there were more that rose up forcefully against the Nazis, then who knows what would have happened. And there were Jewish leaders that said, "Shush, still, don't rock the boat, don't say anything." And look what happened in my father's town. When he was a kid, the Nazis invaded into Poland. And slowly but surely, more troops arrived. And they put out tables of whatever they could do, bread and drinks and that, to greet the Nazi soldiers that were coming, hoping that they're not going to, but nothing. They had to either they could escape and flee into the forest, or they were murdered and butchered in the worst way possible that you could think of. My father saw kids thrown out of windows, used as target practice by the Nazis. These organizations speak of the same kind of genocide and the same hate that they have, and therefore do never ever go to a dinner or an organization that has anything to do with this kind of ideology of BDS. And again, the BDS, like we said from the start, the BDS organization They say, and they were founded in Ramallah, and the composition includes Hamas, Islamic Jihad, PFLP, these organizations that are listed. How dare anyone from our community or anyone that wants to be a moral person, seemingly moral, have anything to do with them? It's not just that you should have revulsion for them. You should want to stop them and speak out against them.
You know, Robert, we every week we say here, you know what? We say, get off the couch, put the remote down, get involved, get tough, you know, put the cowardice aside, you know, come talk to us. We'll help. Absolutely. But it's the same mentality over and over again. You know, I never say that, you know what, these people are my enemies and these people, no. It's our own kind, you know, that join these other organizations, legitimize all these people. They're our biggest enemies. They really are. They're terrible, terrible people, and they should be outed in the community, starting with the rabbis that legitimize these organizations. It's sickening.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
You always fire me up, man. He fires me up all the time, man. Anyways.
I'm not trying to incite anyone.
Of course not. Never.
Robert fires everybody up.
Robert does. Robert, when this whole pandemic thing, you know, God willing, it's over, you got to come back so we can go out for lunch again. That was great when we went out. That was amazing. Had a great time.
Listen, after the Hilton Hotel, when we had it there, we were in the lobby having drinks.
Yeah, that was great. That day should come again soon.
Yes. You know, would it be possible? And I wonder, I kind of think not. Would the Hilton Hotel agree to host such an event now? I bet they wouldn't.
You know what? I don't know. Remember, I knew the owner. So
well, that's different.
Yeah.
But you're right. I know what you're getting at. You're right. You know, a lot of years have passed. You know, the media has crushed right thinking people, and they've put everybody in the corner.
Yes.
You're right. You're right.
Now the regime in the United States is working to criminalize political dissent, like a real communist state. You know, they're using this this so-called insurrection of January 6th to say that it's very clear that many of them have already said they're not just going after the people who went into the Capitol on that day, but the people who enabled them, their support system. So in other words, anybody who voted for Trump, anybody who supports Trump, they're going to try to make that into a criminal offense. Now you think, oh, that can never happen in America. Well, I never would have thought it could even be discussed in America. And yet it's being talked about openly. And the Attorney General refuses to condemn Antifa, but he says he's going to go after this supposed white supremacist terrorist group. And the white supremacist terrorists, if you read the establishment media, it's everybody who voted for Trump.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Including blacks.
Yes.
Including it's a sizable black population that voted for Trump.
Mexican,
Candace Owens.
Latinos. Yeah. It's amazing. You know, it's getting worrisome even to like something. Let's say on Facebook. You know, if you like something, who's going to see it? Somebody going to report you? You know, it's getting to that. It's getting to that point now, Meir? Where if you agree with something on Facebook, on whatever platform it's going to be on, someone's going to report you. Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah.
You know, this is real socialism, Big Brother, scary, scary times.
Oh yeah.
Oof.
Robert, we have this podcast every Wednesday night, and you know, maybe we could have you on more regular.
We'd love to see you.
Because there's a lot of people that really read your what you put out there, and I mean your books. Are you working on a new book now?
Oh yeah, actually 3, and they should all be out this year. One of them is not strictly speaking a new book. It's a revised and expanded version of a book I wrote 10 years ago called Did Muhammad Exist? An inquiry into Islam's obscure origins. It's a fascinating study as far as I'm concerned. I'm fascinated by it. it looks into the earliest records that we have to see what the earliest statements were about Muhammad, about Islam, about the Quran, and you find this striking thing. For 60 years, the Arabs were conquering the Middle East, North Africa, Persia, India, going into Spain, 60 years after the death of Muhammad, which is supposed to have been in 632. And in all that time, there's just a couple of mentions of Muhammad with no explanations of who he was that correspond to what he is in Islam, and no mention of the Quran, and no mention of Islam, and lots of records by the people who were conquered, lots of contemporary 7th century literature where they say these people came out of Arabia and they invaded and they conquered, and they never say they had a new religion. They never call them Muslims. They never had said they had a new holy book or a new prophet. So that's, did Muhammad exist? Revised and expanded version, because there are new developments in this field all the time, and that will be out in July. And then in November, the Critical Quran, which is a new translation of the Quran. You know how these study editions work. You have the text on the top, and then underneath, explanations of it. And I have explanations from the Islamic commentators on the Quran, mainstream understanding of how Muslims view the Quran, but also something that has never been in any edition of the Quran anywhere, and that is variant readings. It's very common in the West, in literature on the Bible, that you have footnotes that say there's some manuscripts that word it this way, and they have a difference. And Muslims boast about that. They say our book is perfect because Allah has preserved it perfectly and it's never been changed. And so every copy of the Quran, every manuscript going back 1400 years that you find, it'll be exactly the same as all the others. Well, that's not true. And this edition, the Critical Quran that I'm just finishing up now, it has hundreds of variant readings from different Quran manuscripts discovered around the world. And an extraordinary amount of information about how the Quran was developed, how it was originally taken from Jewish and Christian texts that were modified to create this new religion. This information, most people have no idea that it exists, and it's never been published in the form that I'm putting it out. There are scholarly articles you can find and so on, but this is a popular edition of the Quran, really a Quran for non-Muslims in a certain sense, because it's honest in the translation, where most English translations obscure what's going on. This one makes it very clear, so you can see where the problematic passages, the violent passages are, and so on, and see how Muslims have understood these passages throughout history, how they understand them today. That's all in there, and that's coming in November. It's I hate that it's such a long lag, but that's the publisher. I turn it in a couple weeks, and then they'll put it out in November.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
People can't accuse Robert of being lazy. That's for damn sure. I mean, 3 books.
No.
Wow.
A great writer.
He is a great writer. A few weeks.
Very kind. How much
Robert, please thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Give Pamela our best. It's been a long time. We haven't seen her in a while either as well. Folks, if you're out there watching this, get online, check out Jihad Watch. You'll see Robert and his amazing writing skills.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Well, Robert, I want to thank you for being with us, sharing with us the information tonight. We'll have you on more often on the show. The show is only, I think, 2 months old, something like that.
Yeah,
so far.
I think so.
We're already getting people that are getting
We've got some good followers, so it's good.
Yes.
Folks, please don't be lazy. Don't be selfish. Share this video so people can also see Robert Spencer on here as well, too.
Thank you very much, Robert, for joining us. It's been a great show tonight, sharing this information, getting it out there. That's what we're doing during the pandemic. Where you can't have mass meetings right now, but we could use the technology that we have right now, and we're we're able to do that. We're able to broadcast this live through Facebook, through other social media devices, platforms, and it's just fabulous every Wednesday night being able to have this opportunity to share the truth
and connect with you.
and connect with people.
Absolutely.
So we had a couple people phone in tonight. Sometimes we have a lot of people phone in. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Again, share this. We'll see you next week. Passover is coming up. Another, basically, the theme of Passover is to speak and speak the truth. It says, what is Passover? The word is Pesach. Pesach. Pay with your mouth. That's the translation. Sach, to give over information, the story, to retell it. We have to keep speaking the truth again and again and again, because people have a tendency to forget. They forget the Holocaust. They forget everything. We have to speak the truth, and and that's what we're doing, and that's what Robert is doing, getting the information out there, because there's a lot of people in the so-called progressive movement. They don't want you to hear the truth at all, and we have to make sure that we're going to give you the opportunity to hear the truth, and one by one, that's how we develop a movement of truth. Thank you very much, everyone.
One more thing. I always have like a birthday or something, whatever, so Tuesday was a good friend of mine, Sarah's birthday. She's one of the cutest women you could ever meet. She's such a nice lady. Happy birthday, Sarah. She's only 70, I think she's only 73 years young.
And we don't have a birthday cake
80,
here. And there's no birthday cake here.
No, she made cake, but I ate it already.
Oh.
Yeah, it was delicious. Banana, it was amazing. Anyways, happy birthday. Hope you'll watch the show. Robert, thanks again for being with us. And Doctor, thank you as always for being marvelous.
Thank you. Hey, let me make a closing comment about Robert, just because we had such a fun time. And a little known about Robert is when he's not writing books and talking about his passion, he also used to be a saxophone player. How many of you all are aware of that? And his three favorite musicians shows his diversity in multi-ethnic belief. So here's Robert's admiration and praise of the Muslim saxophonist Pharoah Sanders, the evangelical Christian Charles Gale, and the once again Jewish Bob Dylan. So on that note, I'm going to go over and out, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.